I've been painting for about 8 years. Originally I was a fashion designer. I trained in fashion design and had my own label and company. And when I left that, I went back to school to study painting. I attended the Ontario College of Art and Design University, and I completed a BFA there. And when I began painting, I wanted to find a way to bring a textile reference into my work because of the fashion background. And so I started painting in a hard edge style with acrylic paint on birch panels with patterns that were in reference to Ontario quilt patterns. And all the paintings have different names referring to quilt patterns such as pansy or tumbling block. I feel they're actually quite abstract, but if you want to know more about them, they do have names. And from there, because of my textile background, I had a collection of these old vintage ironing boards that I just collected because I liked them as a nice object from the fashion business. And I decided to transfer the reference to textiles and quilt patterns onto the vintage heritage wood Canadian ironing boards. And the work was quite successful. I've done a series of 12 of those at this point, and I have a stockpile of probably about another 20 to 25 vintage ironing boards that I will continue on with. And from there, I've gone on to actually using that motif in my more recent paintings, where I've returned with the shape of the vintage ironing board and I put it back onto the birch panel, but they still contain a reference to the Canadian quilt patterns in the work. Some other things you'll see in my work is a curving line gesture where the wood is revealed, and that is in reference to the Danube River. I traveled to Budapest a few years ago now, and when I was flying into the city, I took pictures of the Danube River from the airplane, and from those photographs I worked up thumbnail sketches that I use as a little curving gesture to break into the quilt pattern. And I think that's it, other than I have moved on to working with smaller size ironing boards as well. I found some vintage sleeve boards. This one is in cedar. It depends on what part of the country where they're made. Some are made in cedar, which would be a reference to BC. I've also found them made in pine and in fir. And more difficult to find are child-size ironing boards, and I have a few of those. They're difficult to find because they were actual toys, and I think they got used and broken as the child, played with them. So when I can find those, I grab those and work on those as well. In 2009, I was shortlisted for the RBC Canadian Painting Competition. I represented Central Canada. I was on the shortlist. And in 2012, I took this ironing board and another one to London, England for the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition and submitted 2 pieces of work. The work was shortlisted. It didn't get hung because it was too large for the gallery and for the curator's vision, but it was something to get shortlisted when they have 10,000 submissions, and I was able to make it to the shortlist. And I think that's about it.